So Amazon has one of the most rigorous hiring processes around, so you can imagine that they are quite picky when it comes to choosing the people that they want to work with. And in today's video, I'm going to touch upon some of the traits that represent red flags throughout their hiring process. And the first one refers to putting the blame on others. And now you might ask, hey Dan, but why would I want to put the blame on someone else during an Amazon interview? Which is a fair point. Now, the tricky part comes in when you're being asked some not so common, not straightforward behavioral questions, such as tell me about the time when you failed, or tell me about the time when you received feedback, challenging feedback from your boss. And there is, in some cases, a high probability that you will talk about other people that you are engaging with, and you are engaging with other people within a tense context. It's not that hard to put the blame on someone else if you think about it. It's not that hard to say, okay, but my boss was a bit too strict, or had an old mentality, or used to shout at me, or I don't know what. So all in all, you should you can prevent these mistakes by ensuring that you prepare your answers, and you know that you should avoid putting the blame on anyone at all costs. And the second trait here that I wanted to talk about is one that's actually being advertised in the media for quite a while now, and Amazon recruiters have come up saying this, that the number one trait for which they disqualify Amazon interview candidates is because they're not sincere. And this usually applies to junior roles, because in junior roles you don't have much experience to how hiring processes work and how good your recruiters are at spotting sincere and not sincere behaviors. And if I may recommend something here, they are very good at these things because they do this all day long. So why wouldn't they be after all? So if you have to engage especially in an on-site interview at Amazon, just ensure that you present the best version of yourself, and try to genuinely be sincere. Now, of course, you may unintentionally sugarcoat something, or present yourself in a much better light at points, which is, fine. I mean, it's up to you how well can you sell yourself, but just be genuine throughout the process. This is really important. The next point that I want to touch upon here is negativism. And this type of behavior, if I may call it like this, results from developing too much on certain answers, and essentially goes hand in hand with boring answers. So if your answers sound boring and sound too long, then there's a high degree of probability that there is too much negativity in there. So for example, when you're talking about a failure story, the usual way this goes is one sentence for the situation and task, two sentences for the failure, for the action part, and maximum 3 sentences for the result. Now, what happens here is that many people do well on the first 2 sections, and then on the result section they tend to do a whole monologue about these things. It's like they still feel like they could have done much better there, so they really take it too personally. And when you develop on those answers for too long, you obviously, unless you're a great entertainer, you risk on boring your audience and employing too much negativism. Now, if you put yourself in your recruiter's shoes, why would you want to hire someone that is negative, that employs negativism, and is rather boring to talk with? Why would you recommend someone like this to your hiring manager? And would you work with someone that's negative in their day-to-day job? Just think about it, and maybe consider tuning up your approach at the interview using this feedback. Another very common mistake that people do when entering Amazon interviews is they do not take their leadership principles seriously. So Amazon is all over the media with their 14 leadership principles, and this is not since yesterday, but they are doing this more and more by the day. And this is something that, even if you don't feel like should be the main highlight of a job interview, it is something very important for them, and this is what matters the most, because after all, you want to work for them. So needless to say here, if you want to get good at these things, just ensure that you read them and you prepare those leadership principles properly. And also, it's only since recently that I start seeing more and more within job descriptions that meets and exceeds the 14 leadership principles. So they even mention those specifically, which should be another reason for you to take them even more seriously. Next, Amazon doesn't like people who do not communicate fluently, and not to be confusing here, if you're not fluent in English, this is not a disqualifier. What I mean here is to not be able to convey ideas concisely. So in other words, for example, I had someone who started a conversation with me about the Amazon interview, and when I asked them, okay, but can you tell me a sample answer that you would give for any question that you like, and they went on for 8 to 10 minutes. So and you know, they were not applying for a junior role, this was for a senior role, but this is the way that they saw the process. And it's super important that you understand that the Amazon culture is in such a fashion that they put a lot of emphasis on communication, and their internal approval process for new ideas goes around 6-page narratives and so on. So you have to be very good at communicating ideas concisely if you want to get the job at Amazon. And last but not least, you should also take into account Amazon's #1 leadership principle, that of customer obsession. The reason for this being that Amazon is very careful at looking for people that think about their customers first and not about their competitors. So, for example, if you're applying for a sales role, you should, and you're being asked a question that would emphasize your strongest project, then you should avoid talking how you beat another team from another company, as opposed to talking about how you made a difference for your own business. Now, of course, you could also reference the competitors and so on, but just ensure that the main highlight of this will be your core competencies. So these are the 6 elements that you should probably avoid and you should probably take into account if you're considering a role with Amazon. And as always, I hope you found this information useful, and thank you very much for watching.